The best new patient generator in decades is virtual reality for dental patients. Opera VR, completely transforming the patient experience, truly gives people a remarkable experience. We can completely transform the patient's awareness, transport them outside of the operatory. Go to operavr.operadds.com. Welcome to the Operatory Podcast, the podcast about burying the dinosaurs in dentistry, moving past outdated technology and procedures to find a better way. With me, as always, is the man, David Pryor, providing the phenomenal patient perspective that's so sorely needed in dentistry today. How are you doing, sir?
Good, Brian. How are you doing today?
I am doing well, man. I am doing well. Once again, this is one of those podcasts where I think you're providing the patient perspective is going to be key.
Oh, they're all key, Brian.
True. But on a very special episode of the Operatory, they're all great, but this is a special one.
Oh, okay.
So,
grab my seatbelt.
So now we've talked about anxiety on this podcast before.
We have.
Yes. Now, you don't particularly have a lot of anxiety, but I want to describe to you something that happened up at the front desk of my office, and then I've got some ideas about it, but I want to get your perspective.
Okay.
So the one thing that from a patient perspective you don't know what's going on is when there's nobody in the reception area. Right. Beginning of the day, we just finished our morning huddle. Mm-hmm. We do have a little powwow. That's what it's called, morning huddle, where we talk about who's coming in today and whatever. Go up to the front desk, and then there's some giggling. You know why?
Because they're laughing at you?
Well, not today. Anyway, so we had Bad Joke Tuesday. No. It wasn't even Bad Joke Tuesday, dude. So it wasn't my funny joke that I came up with.
Okay. Let's pretend you have funny jokes.
Oh, do you want to hear today's?
No.
Oh, yeah. You're going to now because you said it. I think this will be the first Bad Joke Tuesday joke on our podcast. My kids will be so happy.
I apologize to all our listeners.
What do you call somebody who comes home from war, having survived both pepper spray and mustard gas?
I have no idea, Brian.
A seasoned veteran. Yes, that's right. That was this week's Bad Joke Tuesday. But that's not why they were giggling. They were giggling.
I'm sure not. I'm so positive not.
They were giggling because Jerry was coming in. Now, Jerry's not the real name. I'm not going to break HIPAA. But let's call the person coming in Jerry.
Okay.
And they were laughing. You know why?
Because Jerry is a funny patient?
No.
Because Jerry has a funny
It was a sarcastic giggle. It was a sarcastic giggle because Jerry has lots of anxiety.
Oh, okay.
Right? So I was sitting back going, here we are. I've got a podcast where we talk about dental anxiety. We've created all sorts of features and things and virtual reality to get over dental anxiety. And my own team is still snickering about somebody come in who has a lot of anxiety. Not in a bad way, just in a way where it's like, oh, this is going to be something that we have to deal with right? Mm-hmm. And so it kind of hit me. Like you have three options when you have something like this happen up at your front desk, right? And number one is you could
let me use my magic powers to figure out which one you used.
Okay,
tell me the options of how you can handle this.
Well, I'll give you a little preview. There's only one good option, right? So number one is you can discipline or fire the people at the front desk because they're having a normal human reaction to having to deal with somebody with anxiety, right?
Yep.
There's all sorts of business books that talk about, firing your worst customers even. So I could say that, Jerry, you can't come here anymore. We don't see people with anxiety like you, or I could say that person up at the front desk, you're fired because you can't handle people with anxiety. Would either of, it might be cathartic sometimes, right? But not necessarily productive for us, me, the receptionist, or for Jerry, right?
God, I hope your staff listens to this one.
Well, so are you saying that that's not a normal human reaction when you hear snickering up at the front desk about dental anxiety, and you actually care about your patients,
compassionate, Brian,
your team,
yes,
and your practice? at some point you're going to go, I have to deal with this.
Right. Yeah.
Do you agree?
Sure. I totally agree.
Yeah. So
I just know how I know how you would like to deal with it, and it involves a baseball bat.
So what you're saying is that number one is my normal
that's your
instinct.
go-to. Yeah, your natural lizard brain instinct is to go baseball bat.
I wish I could deny that, but Dave knows me too well. So you could start bringing up examples that I won't go. We don't want to go there. So number one is to just fire the patient, fire the team member, some type of drastic overcorrection.
Yes. Yeah, right.
I think we agree that's not,
that
even though it may be my base instinct,
right, yes,
it's not the best way to go.
That is not a good way to go. You're
okay.
Right.
Number two is you could just suck it up. Not my normal.
That'll
right?
never happen. That's no.
But that's probably
number one's far more likely than number two. Okay.
But out there in the universe, if you're not, if you don't have hypervigilance like me with the rage to match, right?
Yes.
You would, I think, normally would be like, oh, let's just move on with our day, right? Endure it.
Let's say a normal person would do that. Yes.
Most people.
Yes.
I mean, I think the vast majority of our listeners, if they went up to the reception area and they heard somebody snickering about somebody coming in with anxiety, their first instinct is not going to be to like pull somebody aside, or they're just going to like let it go.
I'm curious. I don't know. That would be an interesting thing to get feedback from the listening audience. How would they react to that? That'd be good.
Yeah, but please do,
because our audience is going to be different than the average.
Man, I don't know. There's not a lot of people. Look, just because you and I are not wired to mind, or not wired to mind confrontation,
right,
doesn't change the fact that 99% of people are, right.
Right.
And so I think the vast. It doesn't make us right, by the way. It makes them right. but most people would just endure it. They'd sit back and go, all right, Sally and Bob are snickering about Jerry coming in, whatever, I'll let it go. If that didn't happen in 99% of dental practices, I would be shocked, right? If just like letting go. Even in my own office, if I'm busy, I'm gonna well, maybe I'll deal with it in the future, and then it'll just drop off. So we've got three options. Number one is to overcorrect.
Yep.
Some type of disciplinary action, get rid of the patient. Number two is to endure it, right? Yep. Number three. What's number three? Well,
number three is going to be the clever one. So it's going to be try to create compassion in the employees.
It's going to be to solve it, right? To actually constructively solve the issue of anxiety, right? So either Opera VR, right, where you can send people somewhere else, some type of sedation, oral sedation, but you could use it as a huge growth opportunity, right, to tap into the underserved market of people who actually care about patients' anxiety. Because when you have, that's not an unusual scenario, right? This is in my own office, and we talk about, 80% of patients have some type of dental anxiety. 22% put off dentistry because of anxiety. Opera VR has really shined a light for us on for me personally, on like how pervasive dental anxiety is.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm up at my own front desk and somebody's snickering about somebody with anxiety coming in.
Yeah.
So it's not like this is a wild, weird scenario that happens in dental practice.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
So I mean, can you as a patient coming into a practice, can you see how that would happen?
Yeah, I can see how healthcare providers are unique in that they have a lot more compassion generally for people's pain than I do. Like I look at people's pain and go, you got to deal with it. But with a healthcare provider like you and like your front end staff, they've got, generally, I think they have a ton of compassion for people's pain in whatever form it comes in. So if somebody's got a toothache versus dental anxiety, but I could also see, how it manifests itself, how Jerry manifests his or her anxiety over the upcoming appointment. That could be something that would be might crack me up. So.
Yeah. Well, but also I think that we've talked about this on the podcast too, that those of us in dentistry become desensitized to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we see somebody else who has a legitimate concern of anxiety, I mean, this is not a normal thing that we're doing to people every day, all day long, but it feels like it because it's normal for us.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so as a patient coming in, having anxiety, you just want them to help you with it. Right.
Right.
And having the team members snicker about it is normalized for us.
Right.
Right. But I guess the whole point of this podcast is that we really have three options. Right.
Yeah.
We can endure it, which is what most people do. We can try to have some type of overcorrection. Like we're not, a lot of dentists, another overcorrection, by the way, that I see all the time is I'm talking to people about dental anxiety all the time because of Opera VR. Because it's my new mission is to get rid of the fact that people hate coming to the dentist, right?
Yeah.
I hate being here. Let's send you somewhere else, right? Virtually.
Right.
And so I'm talking to dentists all the time. This is such a big deal that you don't even realize. And I'll say it's like nitrous oxide, but better in every single way.
Yeah.
Less expensive, easier to administer, faster, no hoses, more effective in most cases. And one of the most common responses I get is, I don't use nitrous, I hate it. I'm like, well, it's not for you. It's for the patient. Right. So an overcorrection is just get rid of it and it's the patient's problem. Great. Those patients will come to me.
Right. Yep.
So 1 is endure it. 2 is ignore it. Right. Or overcorrect. And 3 is to try to solve it.
Yeah.
And so it's my call to action to everybody out there to do number 3. Because it's probably happening. If it's happening in my office, it's probably happening in yours. That the front desk, the people in the back aren't taking patients' anxiety seriously, and not even just they're even compassionately taking it seriously, but as an opportunity for your practice to thrive.
Yeah.
If you can tackle it leveraging virtual reality, why wouldn't you?
Well, more generally, to your point, those people that have dental anxiety, one of the things that I've learned in my position at selling Opera VR is that the patients that have the most dental anxiety are the patients that will hype you up the most if you can figure out a way to solve it. And so if you can come in and say, I just tried Opera VR in my dentist's office and it was amazing, they're going to tell everyone, and you're going to get a ton of new patients as a result of that.
Hallelujah. Amen, brother. I'm with you 100%. Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yep.
So thank you, sir. I very much appreciate you being and this one. I'm a hyped up podcast today.
Right. Thank you.
I also want to remind you to rate and review us wherever you're listening to this podcast. If you have suggestions or comments, please visit theoperatory.com and drop us a line. Again, I'm Dr. Bryan Laskin, host of The Operatory. Thanks for listening. I look forward to speaking with you next week.